From Yahoo. They deserve a long prison sentence. Musk joins Trump in trashing 60 Minutes. Well, they're liars, for one thing. Elon Musk has come around to his boss's way of thinking, trashing CBS 60 Minutes, saying the team behind the program deserves to be jailed. Musk's dander was up after the long-running news magazine shared a promotion of their segment on the proposed slashing of federal funding for USAID. Reporter Scott Pelley began the segment wondering how serious President Donald Trump is in defiance of the Constitution. In a later clip, a Republican former administrator of the aid agency, you see how they play that game, denied Musk's claim of widespread waste. 60 Minutes are the biggest liars in the world. They engaged in deliberate deception to interfere with the last election, he wrote. They deserve a long prison sentence. That was Elon Musk. Now, the fascinating thing is, in this 60 Minutes show, they interviewed a woman, and actually, I should pull this tweet up, where they used presumptive language to make you believe she worked for USAID. They said this woman got fired in the recent chaos around USAID, when in fact she worked for, according to reports, I believe this is Mario Nawfal reporting. They actually, I have the video from myself, but I want to pull one up. They worked for a speech writing company. Actually, here's the easiest thing I can find. Literally me from my morning show, but I'll pull up the tweet instead of having my own voice play. So Mario Nawfal tweeted, 60 Minutes claimed Christina Dry was fired this month in the chaotic shutdown of USAID. What they didn't tell you, Christina wasn't a USAID employee. She worked for XLA and Jefferson Partners, providing speech writing services for USAID Administrator Samantha Power, who resigned. Another day, another half-truth on prime time. Well, Mario, I'd go as far to say it's an outright lie. They said that she got fired in the chaos or whatever it was because they wanted people to make the assumption she was an employee when they didn't actually have one.
I think it's funny because they did that to portray her as the victim of Doge and everything. But it actually, in my Twitter circles, and obviously I live in a bubble, but it really infuriated people because it's like, oh, welcome to the real world and where you don't have total job security. Yeah. Like, welcome to the rest of us. And I think about like the cheerleading that all of these leftists did during COVID about locking the government down for 2 straight freaking years. And then all of a sudden, like, people need their jobs. Like, where were you in 2020 and 2021 talking about livelihood?
Probably screaming defund everything.
Yeah, these people have no idea how the average person looks at them. No. There was a tweet that I saw the other day, and I couldn't help but retweet it and say, and it was about this. I'm pretty sure they had no idea that the average person looks at the bureaucracy with complete contempt. Mm-hmm. Only the most committed politicos and Democrat operatives and activists defend these people. Every other normal, right-thinking person hates the bureaucracy because they know that they're millionaires because they work for the government, even though they should only be making like $150,000 a year. But
if you look at the property values around Washington, D.C., it's bonkers.
Yeah, it's bonkers.
It's like the 10 most rich counties in the country. 9 of them are here.
So we're just talking about
Loudoun County is number 1 with the highest median income. But I think in the top like 50 counties, like the top 10 are, or it's like there's like 10 in the top 20 or something. They're all surrounding DC.
We were just talking about DCA, and I tend to go out that way a lot. And if you go from here to DCA and you go straight through Langley, go right by CIA, there are some of the most palatial and opulent homes that I have ever seen in my life. They're not rock stars. Yep. They're not movie stars. They're not doing anything that the average person is aware of. They're lobbyists. Mm-hmm. They're working for the government. When I say opulent, I mean opulent. Like literally just they look like palatial. They look like something you would imagine that royalty in England would some lord or lady would be living in. It is absolutely offensive.
There's a Twitter account that I've been like guilt following for the last couple days of all these houses that are going up for sale in the DC area, and he's linking the house to the individual who owns it and just says their job. And it's nuts. It's really nuts. It's like, $2.3 million lobbyists for this, because I drive through these neighborhoods and I'm like, what do these people do?
Yeah.
Oh, you've driven through McLean?
Yeah.
Everywhere in this area.
This should be a tour. Like, if you ever go to visit D.C., make sure you time to get a nice tour bus through McLean so you can look at the capital city of the Hunger Games. That no question. I mean, it's fascinating. The Hunger Games series is a bit childish, no disrespect, but is, not meant to be the most sophisticated. But it's fascinating how the metaphor, just like the direct storyline is, there's all these districts and they're from very poor to very rich, and the capital does nothing. They literally just control everything and keep keep the district suppressed and enslave, the main character's district to do coal mining or whatever. It's basically Appalachia. Actually go to D.C. and you're like, ain't wrong. These people are dressed in ridiculous clothing. First of all, you know what I really hate about D.C.? Everybody just wears North Face. And it's been that way for a long time. You go to New York and everyone's got some weird fashion hipster thing going on. They're probably wearing Supreme. You go to D.C., it's all North Face. That's their uniform or suits. But you go to the areas out surrounding D.C., like Loudoun County, and it is modern day, like, nobility.
Yeah.
These are people who don't do anything. They get government contracts that make no sense, and they're rich for the sake of being rich.
Do you think these people stay? Are they fleeing the city? Do they see it as an occupied city now?
The reports are that they're fleeing, and it's all collapsing.
Good.
I do have that story pulled up. We'll get more in depth on it in a bit, though. The core of our story now was that the media is still desperately trying to lie, and that's what 60 Minutes is doing, because the corporate press is an instrument of the establishment. At this point, someone super chatted that the Trump era follows Star Wars perfectly. Trump, A New Hope, Biden, The Empire Strikes Back, and now we're in the return of the Orange Man. What comes next would be like The Force Awakens, I guess. So it does, but think about this. It's interesting. I think Star Wars is largely garbage at this point. They destroyed the written canon. They got rid of it all, and then Disney made a bunch of garbage. But I digress. Where Star Wars goes after Return of the Jedi is the remnants of the Empire form the First Order, which is this militant, stateless entity that is still trying to regain control of the governments. Kind of what they're doing. I mean, Trump has crushed the deep state. He's gutting their funding, but the remnants are still trying to claw back to some degree, some kind of power.
They're going to lash back. I feel like they've receded into the shadows and are.
This is Trump's march to the sea, though, bro.
Yeah. Oh, it feels like it for sure.
The USAID gutting, the IRS, all of these institutions getting their funding ripped to shreds.
Yep.
He is destroying their ability to wage administrative war.
Yeah.
The Democrats are still trying to get their feet underneath them. They're still they're in disarray. And I think that as long as they are having this war in the Democrat Party, which they're going to have for a while, because it's not clear what the Democrats are going to do. Are the Democrats going to coalesce around the extreme far left, who has been setting the tone for not just the Democrats but for the whole country for the past 10 years? As long as there has been a demand for you to call a trans woman she, as opposed to saying he, as long as that has been a demand that people have had to actually comply with, that's how long the crazy far left has been in charge and totally in charge of the Democrat Party. There are people in the Democrat Party that have now come out and said this will continue to make us lose, because the average person does not believe this. They do not agree, and they've started to say we reject this. And as long as the average person, again, the not left, it doesn't have to be the right, it's just the not left. As long as you're trying to make the normal people that want to be left alone, as long as you're saying you have to call a trans woman she, then they're going to reject it. And the reason is because every dude knows that at some point the demand will be you must date a trans woman or you're a bigot. If you reject a trans, because that is a narrative that comes out of the trans community now. Yep. And if they are in control, they will shove that down the average person's throat, and no one wants that.
They just
Lesbian women,
trans man as a DNC chair.
Yeah.
David Hogg.
Yeah. Lesbian women do not want penises. That's absolutely true. And yet there are trans women that call themselves lesbians that say, oh, if you reject me, you're a bigot. Straight men do not want penises, and there are trans women that say, if you will not date me, you're a bigot. Those people have been in control of the narrative, and as long as they're in control of the narrative, the Democrats are not going to be able to convince the average person.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.